My name is Sarah Swenson-King on behalf of the San Bernardino County Transportation Authority. We have a number of folks from SBCTA who are joining us today, and that's Victor Lopez, Director of Transit and Rail, Joy Buenaflor, Deputy Director of Transit and Rail Capital Delivery. We have Otis Greer, Director of Legislative and Public Affairs, Tim Watkins, of our Chief of Legislative and Public Affairs, as well as Anthony Van Dyke, Nick Laverick, and Brianne Overton from our technical team for the Zemu project and aero maintenance facility. So you're joining the February 2024 webinar for the Zero-Emission Multiple Unit and aero maintenance facility. And that's going to be coming to San Bernardino County later this year. We unfortunately can't be discussing specific details about the Zemu train due to proprietary reasons, but we will be able to provide a general overview and update and discuss the details of the aero maintenance facility retrofit and what exactly that means and where activities will be taking place. So a couple of items before we get started into the presentation. Our webinar will be recorded and posted on our website at go.sbcta.com/Zemu for those who couldn't join us live today. As part of the webinar feature, your microphone is automatically muted and your cameras are automatically disabled. We will be using the question and answer function to answer your questions, and our team may provide written responses in real time as appropriate, but at the conclusion of our presentation, we will do our best to highlight and respond to some of the key themes and topics from those questions. We will be launching a few polls throughout the presentation, so I'd appreciate if you humor us and participate in those, but they're really just an interactive way for us to learn more about you and gauge your awareness levels of some of the topics that we'll be discussing this evening. This is an informational webinar to inform you about this project. We believe all positions, both positive or negative, related to SBCTA activities should have a voice in the process. However, we expect that this will be done in a respectful manner, and SBCTA reserves the right to monitor, filter, and remove content or participants that our team deems inappropriate. So for those of you who may not be familiar with the Zoom platform, the Q&A can be found on the bottom of your screen. Simply click on where it says Q&A and a pop-up will appear where you can type in your question. And as I shared on the previous slide, we'll do our best to respond to those questions using this feature and address overall topics and themes at the end of our presentation. You may still see the chat feature button at the bottom of the screen. However, chats will only be directed to the panelists and utilized to receive more information for questions that may require further research. If you are joining us from a landline and using the call-in option, please email your questions to info@go.sbcta.com and a member of our team will get back to you. So with that, let's get started, and I will hand it over to Joy Buenaflor, SBCTA's Deputy Director of Transit and Rail Programs Capital Delivery.
Thank you, Sarah. Good evening. As Sarah said, my name is Joy Buenaflor, and I'm the Deputy Director of Transit and Rail Programs and the Project Manager for the Zemu project. We'd like to start by addressing a few key players that have been integral in bringing Zemu to San Bernardino County. For those who may not be familiar with SBCTA, SBCTA is responsible for cooperative regional planning and furthering an efficient multimodal transportation system countywide. In simple terms, it's our mission to improve the quality of life and mobility for San Bernardino County's 2.2 million residents. Excuse me. Zemu's journey began over a decade ago with SBCTA recognizing a need to establish greener alternatives to address one of the most challenged air quality basins in the country. SBCTA envisioned a new passenger rail service that could reconnect San Bernardino and Redlands in an eco-friendly way. In 2016, the 9-mile service was officially dubbed Aero, and 3 diesel multiple unit DMU vehicles were ordered from the rail manufacturer. Metrolink is Southern California's commuter rail system and the operator of the Aero rail line. Now that Aero has been open to passengers since October 2022, we're continuing to work closely with the Federal Railroad Administration to bring Zemu to San Bernardino County, which will offer passenger the most environmentally rail-friendly vehicle in the United States. Next slide, please. This map highlights the key stations along the 9-mile-long Aero line located within the cities of San Bernardino and Redlands. Aero offers a new travel choice for residents and visitors and connects to Mountain Transit, Omnitrans, Pass Transit, and Victor Valley Transit. The Zemu passenger rail will be deployed as part of the Aero service. Next slide, please. The diesel multiple units, or what we call DMUs, began operating on the Aero line on October 24, 2022. They are powered by an onboard low-emission clean diesel engine, which are smaller, quieter, more efficient, and cheaper to operate than standard locomotive haul coaches, which is what we see in other parts of the Metrolink system throughout Southern California. DMUs work interoperably on the same track as Metrolink and freight train services, which allows for all 3 train services to use the same track in the existing corridor. Metrolink Air trains run from approximately 4:30 in the morning to 10:45 p.m. on weekdays, and from approximately 5:30 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. on the weekends. Connections between Aero trains and San Bernardino line trains are available 7 days a week at the San Bernardino downtown station. Sarah?
Great, thanks, Joy. So we're going to launch our first poll question here, and we'd like to ask those who are joining us if you've had a chance to ride on Aero's DMU trains. So your options here are yes, no, or not quite yet, because you're so excited and waiting to ride the Zemu train once it arrives here. So we'll give it a couple of seconds for folks to submit their responses, and then we will share those results. All right, we're going to close it down in 3, 2, 1. Let's end the poll and share our results. Okay, so hopefully you guys can all see that. We have 44% who have said no, they've not had a chance to take a trip on Aero, 33% who have responded yes, and 22 who are saying not yet, they're waiting to ride Zemu. So sounds like there's still a great room of opportunity for the year ahead to take that train ride. Thanks, Joy. I'll advance to the next slide.
So just to give you an overview of the Zemu project, SBCTA envisioned and committed to a modern, sustainable passenger rail system that would redefine commuter transit along one of the busiest transportation corridors in the United States. North America's first compliant zero-emission hydrogen-powered passenger train will run in the existing Aero line, and the current Aero maintenance facility will be upgraded to Zemu to accommodate the Zemu operation. As you can see on the map, the location of the Aero maintenance facility is off the 215 freeway. Providing North America's first compliant zero-emission hydrogen-powered passenger train is critical to milestone demonstrating SBCTA's investment in the county's sustainable future, zero-emission transportation options, and the transition away from using fossil fuels to protect the health of its 22.2 million residents and visitors. As I mentioned earlier, the Zemu passenger rail will be deployed as part of the Aero service, and we can expect to see the Zero vehicle arrive for testing in San Bernardino County in spring of 2024. So let me talk you through the project history and the Zemu's journey. In 2018, a California State Transportation Agency grant allowed SBCTA to begin research and development of a low zero-emission rail passenger vehicle to be operated along the Aero corridor. In 2019, SBCTA signed a contract with Stadler, U.S. to design and build the Zemu. It is the first hydrogen-powered passenger train to operate in the United States. In October of 2022, Aero opened a passenger operating its service within the diesel multiple units, or the DMUs. The Zemu train was manufactured in Switzerland and made the trek overseas, finding its way to the Transportation Technology Center in Pueblo, Colorado, late last year, and began testing on a test track here in the United States. In October 2023, SBCTA and the rail manufacturer Stadler debuted the Zemu train at an International Transportation Expo in Florida, and we anticipate it to join Air's rail fleet for operations later this year. Next slide, please. So SBCTA's ultimate goal is to bring zero-emission vehicles to San Bernardino County to offer a viable and more environmentally friendly alternative. The Zemu concept feasibility study determined that the battery and hybrid hydrogen fuel cell are the two technology options that are recommended to move forward and are most suitable for the aero service between San Bernardino and Redlands, as well as possible future expansion to Los Angeles Union Station. Ultimately, furthering progress, reducing air quality impacts while furthering the use of our existing rail system. On the screen, we can see Zemu's journey to the United States from Switzerland, traveling through Europe and across the Atlantic. Next slide, please. Here we have a video that our rail manufacturer produced depicting Zemu's arrival and delivery to the port of Galveston, Texas. From the port, the Zemu was transported to Colorado for testing.
Joy, I'm just going to chime in here while this is still finishing up.
Sure.
As you can see, the video has been sped up, but if you haven't had a chance to take a look at some of the footage of Zemu making its way to the United States, we will put a link out for those who joined us after the meeting, and you can view all of the videos on our website.
Okay. And this is the testing that we did at Pueblo, Colorado in September 2023. Part of that testing is the speed test of 79 miles an hour, which is the ultimate vehicle speed. And that's to your right is the project team that's been working on this project since 2018 for the grants, and then 2019 for the development of the vehicle. So pictured on the screen is the SBCTA team. Oh, sorry. This is Anthony.
Yeah, good evening. That's okay. My name is Anthony Van Dyke. I'm the vehicle project coordinator, and I'm going to speak a little bit about the testing of the Zemu vehicle. It started in Switzerland in April of 2022, and you can imagine we don't start with going straight into moving the whole vehicle as a whole. So the testing in Europe started with the systems and grew until being able to ensure that all of the functionality of the vehicle worked in a static state, and then started into dynamic testing and making sure that all of the safety functionality worked as expected, that the new propulsion elements, which we'll talk about in a little bit, were working as intended, and that all of the automatic safety systems that are in place on the vehicle behaved accordingly. Joy mentioned that the vehicle was shipped over to Colorado and went to the Transportation Technology Center for testing, and that is where additional higher speed testing, some longer runs, that is where the braking and acceleration qualification testing was performed, again, continuing to add layer on layer of more complex tests and ensuring that all of the safety functionality of the vehicle behaved as designed and as expected. Joy also mentioned that it took a little field trip to the APTA Expo in Orlando, Florida, which was good, and then has come back and is currently back in Pueblo, Colorado, doing testing. We are anticipating the vehicle completing the testing at TTC later this spring, and then moving to San Bernardino. Once it is there, it will perform testing to ensure that it interfaces correctly with the maintenance and operation alignments and infrastructure some of which we'll get into in a moment as well, and also to ensure that the vehicle behaves as designed and as expected on the actual alignment it will be in service on. And that is what I have for testing. Nick, I believe you're next.
Sure, thanks, Anthony. Yeah, so the next slide or two is just a little bit about the vehicle and the system and how it works and some properties of hydrogen. So as we've said, so the zero-emission vehicle, it is powered by hydrogen, so hydrogen being essentially the fuel source. And we actually use what's called a hydrogen fuel cell on board, essentially replacing the diesel engines. So the diesel engines are an engine turning a generator to make electricity. A fuel cell, with hydrogen, we are basically combining hydrogen and oxygen from the atmosphere, reacting that in the fuel cell, and it essentially just generates electricity, and the exhaust, instead of being, say, typical diesel emissions, particulates and NOx and such, the emissions is purely just water vapor or steam, essentially steam and hot water. And yeah, so it's a pretty cool piece of kit. The water is essentially pure, and it's also fed by onboard traction batteries. So they are kind of used as a buffer, essentially like a hybrid. So if you think of your Toyota Prius, it's got batteries on board and an engine. We've got batteries on board and fuel cells. So it is completely zero emission in terms of point of use, creating clean power that both propels the electric motors to move the train and provides, auxiliaries like air conditioning and lighting and all that. So pretty neat bit of kit. Move on to the next. Thank you. Yeah. So, and then now a little bit more about hydrogen. It's actually been used for decades in, energy or power generation, and even in transportation. It's used in trucks, buses, even passenger vehicles. So the technology itself is essentially the same, and the molecules we use are based on those, same fuel standards, but in terms of hydrogen itself, it's the most abundant element in the universe. It's very, very small particles. It's used in its gaseous form on board the train, and it's essentially odorless, colorless, tasteless. It's got the benefits of not being toxic or poisonous. It's non-corrosive. In fact, it's not a greenhouse gas either. So in terms of letting it into the atmosphere is actually no issue. And it is much, much lighter than air. It's a very small molecule, so that gives us the benefit of it dissipating very rapidly if there are, leaks or issues, or even the way the fueling systems work. Sometimes you'll, purge a line and just release it to the atmosphere. It's actually completely safe to disperse it in air. So it's known how to handle it. It's been in industries for decades, and there are sort of standards around safely transporting it and handling it and storing it, which we obviously do. Just in terms of what we're doing, safety planning, there's a whole vehicle design process and hazard design process, but as well on the facility side, we have mitigations in place, and it's typically around, we work closely with the fire departments and the national standards, NFPA standards for hydrogen. They are in existence, and we're following them. But more specifically, things like, we need to be able to detect if there's leaks. We need to have ventilation systems to disperse the gas, detect when it's leaked. Also, imaging cameras, thermal cameras in case of fires, so that helps detect fires. And really just, the maintenance of the system and the routine inspections are something that, we need to follow closely and train the people and follow the procedures. It is a new technology for folks to understand. So there's a big effort around sort of that education and training and awareness for people. Now, just at the bottom of the slide there, you'll see a little bit more about the train onboard system. So, like you see, you got the hydrogen fuel stored in the non-passenger car in the middle of the train there. Fuel cells generating power and then sharing that with the batteries. They both feed the converters, which just power. It's actually labeled as an engine at the right-hand end of the screen. That's not quite accurate. It's the motors are in the trucks at the end there that physically turn the wheels and move the train. So yeah, a little bit of system architecture shown there. And I think it is on to Brianne.
Thanks, Nick. Yep. So a little bit about the infrastructure side of things. I think most folks are probably familiar with the existing aero maintenance facility that's located in San Bernardino, just close to the Santa Fe depot. So that's used currently for the existing maintenance and storage of the DMUs. So in order to safely operate and maintain the new Zemu vehicle, as Nick sort of started to discuss, we're going to be doing some upgrades to this facility, which I'll talk about in the next slide. And yeah, as you can see on the screen there, we've got a future H2 fueling area proposed, and most of the upgrades are going to be focused within the facility and that fueling area. You can go to the next slide.
Well, we're going to launch before we move on to the next slide, Brianne, we're going to launch one more, our next poll. So we're asking those who are joining us this evening, if you live, work, or travel near the AMF, as Brianne mentioned, it's just east of the Santa Fe depot, or maybe none of the above, and you are just really curious about this project and excited about the new greener technology that's coming to our county. So we'll give it a couple more seconds and we'll close the poll. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Let's share the results. Okay. Oh, none of the above. So I'm so curious to know where people are joining us from, but at least a few of you traveling near the AMF, and then looks like just 1 or 2 people have identified that they live and work near there. So thank you. Thanks, Brianne.
Great. Yeah. So for those kind of traveling by, my guess is maybe you'll see it from the freeway. So definitely can expect some construction activities on the site over the next year. We should be kicking off construction this month, and that'll go through to early 2025. As I mentioned, most of the facility upgrades will be focused within the building itself. Just making sure that we've got the right systems in place to support any of the leak detection, as Nick alluded to, and ventilation systems. We will be doing some upgrades to the outside of the facility to support the fueling infrastructure. But yeah, very minimal upgrades in terms of the overall scope of work. And SBCTA has been working with the local authorities having jurisdiction to review the designs as we've gone through that process. And we've also engaged a third-party reviewer, the Center for Hydrogen Safety. We've got the Hydrogen Safety Panel on board reviewing that. So there's a lot of great examples in California where hydrogen's been used safely for quite a few years. And again, Nick sort of hinted on this. Sunline Transit, which you may or may not be familiar with in the Coachella Valley, they've been operating hydrogen fuel cell buses since 2000. You might have seen their Sun bus going through the routes there. They produce their own hydrogen on site as well as have it delivered, and like I said, have been operating that system for quite a number of years. Other agencies which have recently come online with hydrogen fuel cell buses include Foothill Transit, Orange County Transportation Authority, and hydrogen's also used at the Port of Long Beach and a number of other private companies for their forklifts and other operations. So a lot of great examples where hydrogen's already in use and making a difference. And just final point on the infrastructure on the fueling side, all of the hydrogen fueling will be carried out on the aero maintenance facility site that I just showed. Currently, we'll be sourcing what's called blue hydrogen from local suppliers that will be delivered to site via truck. As we see more projects come online and a higher demand for hydrogen, we expect that there's a lot of projects producing green hydrogen. So SBCTA's goal is really to transition towards using green hydrogen in the future. The vehicle itself, as you saw through the testing, has been safely fueled for the last year. In terms of the actual fueling operations, those will occur in the evening, and residents can expect some activities and noise associated with that, but nothing kind of outside of the norm in terms of typical rail operations. And passing it back to Joy.
Thank you, Brianne. So let's talk about a little bit of the project benefits of the Zemu project. As I've mentioned earlier, SBCTA is committed to being a part of the solution to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and improve air quality. And that's why we're doing what we can and sharing this information with you tonight. Zemu has proven to be viable and more environmentally friendly alternative to traditional transportation methods. When hydrogen is used in a fuel cell to produce electricity, the only byproduct, as Nick mentioned, is water vapor, making it a clean alternative to traditional diesel-powered trains and significantly reducing the carbon footprint of the transportation system and helping combat air pollution. Hydrogen as a rail fuel supports zero carbon goals as clean energy source and offers a more powerful and efficient energy output than fossil fuels. Compared to internal combustion engines and diesel trains, hydrogen fuel cell can convert a higher percentage of the energy content in hydrogen into usable power for propulsion. This efficiency can result in reduced energy consumption and reduced operational costs for the train system. Hydrogen trains tend to be quieter than traditional diesel trains, which can be especially beneficial for communities located along the train route. A zero-emission train will not only bring forward improved air quality, it is putting San Bernardino County on the map as an innovative testing hub for green technology. I will pass it back to Sarah to close us out.
Great. Thank you, Joy. All right. So obviously, for those who are here with us tonight, there's a lot of information. It sounds like a really exciting year ahead, not only for our county, but really for transportation in North America, which I think is really exciting and special for us to all be part of. And for those of you who have not had a chance to take your trip on Aero yet, as you've all heard, later this year, you'll get a chance to not only ride on Aero, but ride on our Zemu train. So again, an exciting year ahead. Our outreach team is a couple of shots here from past events that we've participated in. You can find our information in a variety of ways, but we will be attending various community events throughout the spring and summer. The first event that you'll see us at is the Downtown San Bernardino Farmers Market, which is held, at the Court Street Square from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. every Tuesday. So we're working on pinning down the exact date on when you can find us there, but we've sprinkled in a couple of dates in April and in May that we're hoping to be in attendance. But this is a great shameless plug to make sure that you're all signed up to receive our email alerts on the project website so that you can be sure to follow us and when we will be out in the community. Our final slide for public outreach. This is just a snapshot of some of the collateral that we share. The video that you're going to see looping, our partners at Metrolink put together this video. So all of the information can be found in a variety of ways. We have fact sheets on our website. We use social media. We also distribute flyers or when construction was underway for the Aero line construction notices to those who live or work along the vicinity of the rail line. I think what's most important here is to identify or to know that we provide all the information in a number of ways. And so it's important that you sign up in the platform that you're most familiar with. So that brings us to our third and final poll for the evening. And we'd like to ask everyone here how you receive our project information. And this poll is multiple choice. So your options are project email alert, the project website, community notices delivered to my door, or social media posts, whether that's Instagram, Facebook, or X, formerly known as Twitter. Okay, we can close the poll and share our results. This is what I like to see. We have 79% who receive our information from a project email alert, 57% from our project website. Community notices delivered to my door. This would make sense because not everybody clicked on whether they live or work near the AMF, but then social media as well. So it sounds like you're all receiving our information, which is great. And that's probably why you're joining us here tonight for our webinar. Okay, so with that would conclude our presentation. Thank you so much to our speakers, to Joy, to Anthony, Brianne, and Nick. A lot of information was shared this evening. As I shared, the webinar is being recorded, and we will post this video on our website and share it on our social media platforms and with our project partners. A quick reminder to please click on the Q&A button at the bottom to ask a question. And if you are joining us via the call-in feature, please email your questions to info@gosbcta.com and a member of our team will get back to you. So with that, I will ask my colleague, Christina, if you've happened to see any topics or themes in the Q&A throughout the presentation.
Hi, Sarah. Yes, we're getting a lot of good questions in the Q&A. I'll start with the first one, which is if we could please elaborate on which aspects of this project are to be treated as proprietary.
Great question. And that was right at the beginning. I think I mentioned that at the very beginning. Okay, Joy, may I pass that on to you to respond, or maybe one of your team members?
Yeah, I think Nick would probably be the most appropriate to answer that question.
Yeah, hi, Joy. Hey, everyone. So, I mean, good question. Pretty much the proprietary aspects of it are to do with details of the vehicle design, mostly the propulsion system. You know, so SBCTA and our team did develop, you know, a specification that we used to enter a contract with Stadler, the vehicle designer and manufacturer. But, you know, there are confidential and proprietary aspects of the design. It is reasonably new technology, definitely for the rail industry, a very new technology. And, you know, so really protecting their sort of, let's say, trade secrets from competitors is the main kind of, you know, proprietary aspect of it. So we need to honor, you know, the agreements with them. And that's the main proprietary aspect.
Okay, thanks, Nick. Christina?
Thanks, Nick. I will move on to the next question. Did the team have to get an FRA waiver to run DMUs on the same tracks as freight, or are they temporarily separated?
I think I will also defer that to Joy and your team, or Nick, I saw you back on camera.
Joy, do you want to take it, or would you like me?
Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, so maybe first point, I think the question was DMU, not Zemu, but I can answer for both if we're interested. So in effect, the DMU does not require waivers. So it's a fully FRA compliant design using the alternative vehicle technology sort of rules that are now in place. So mainly around crash worthiness, that uses a sort of a crash energy management approach to keeping you know, passengers safe and absorbing energy in collisions. So that in effect is the main reason they can run not separated in traffic from other, you know, other heavy rail vehicles. The Zemu is also fully compliant with that, and actually we've taken an even more robust approach to protecting the power pack and the batteries, the things that are new on this design. And so we've gone through a very rigorous process with FRA presenting, you know, the designs, the compliance to the regulations, and also really thorough hazard analysis and sort of statistical analysis around possible, you know, well, what has happened in the past around collisions or any possible thing that could you know, happen on this you know, in the service, and you know, really thorough process whereby the FRA, you know, grant concurrence to operate. So it's not a waiver, but there is, let's say, an extra process to go through because this is a new fuel, a new technology. So it follows actually a similar process the FRA set up for the use of natural gas as a fuel about 10 years ago, a bit over 10 years ago now.
Thank you, Nick.
Awesome. I'm also seeing a theme with some questions. Could the team please elaborate on some of the safety measures that we have in place that may differ from other hydrogen locations?
Do you want me to take that one on, Joy?
Go ahead, Brianne, since you're working on the fueling side.
Yep, sure. So one of I think the most important approach for SBCTA was to engage what's called the Center for Hydrogen Safety. And that group really is involved with pretty much most hydrogen projects at the national level. So they put together a sort of safety panel team for a project if you're engaged with them, and they provide sort of an independent third-party review And they have done that for both our facility and also our fueling process as that goes through its design process as well. So I think that's one of the approaches. Nick also touched a little bit on, there's a very rigorous vehicle safety hazard analysis process that's carried out that's really kind of governed and dictated by the FRA. So that is sort of a whole process in itself. But yeah, I think that's the biggest piece. And I guess the other nuance here is, of course, it's rail. We're dealing with very different specifications for rail. And so we're sort of doing our due diligence and going back to engineering first principles using a hazard-based approach. And we've also done quite a bit of CFD modeling to support our hazard analysis as we go through our design process. So anything to add, Joy, that maybe I didn't capture?
I think you've covered everything and the safety measures that we've gone through to ensure that the hydrogen fuel use and operation is sound.
Awesome. Thanks, team. Can we also please elaborate on what will happen to the DMUs that are currently running on the airline once Zemu is in service?
Sure. So right now the service is having 2 vehicles run for the service throughout the day. The current plan, and we're still working with Metrolink, is to substitute one of the DMU vehicles with a Zemu vehicle. And hopefully the future would be to change out the fleet to an entire Zemu fleet.
And then in the same line as that, we have another question about the DMUs. What is the cost comparison between running DMUs and Zemu? Is it pretty similar?
Since we haven't really ran the Zemu, we won't have a cost comparison. All we had was estimates, but given it's a different technology altogether, we would know more once we start having the vehicle in service.
Awesome, thanks, Joy. And will Metro/Alstom continue to operate at the Aero location?
Yes, so that's the intent. Metrolink will continue to operate the Aero line.
And then, do we have an estimate as to like what month or time frame that Zemu will be carrying passengers?
So right now, as we mentioned, the train will begin testing in spring of 2024, and we'll probably go through a few months of testing and get FRA concurrence. So hopefully by the fall of 2024, we'll have the service open for public.
Awesome, thank you, Joy. And is there a timeline? We talked about blue and green hydrogen. Is there a timeline or specific targets for the move toward green hydrogen for SBCTA and Aero?
As we mentioned, that is the goal is to go green, but we're very dependent on suppliers and how they produce their hydrogen. So we're just, we're not the same timeline. And so as you probably are aware, there's not a whole lot of green hydrogen producers. If you see them in the news, they're just starting their environmental document and nothing is up and running. So their timeline is basically what our timeline will be in using total green energy or hydrogen.
Awesome, thank you, Joy. And then does SBCTA consider hydrogen fuel? Are they going to consider hydrogen fuel buses as well in the future?
Yes, we are. We're actually working with our transit providers in moving into a zero-emission vehicles, whether that's battery electric or hydrogen-powered buses.
Awesome. And then this may be one of the proprietary questions, but what positive train control system does our Zemu vehicle use? I think that's proprietary, yes.
Nick, do you want to?
Yeah, I'm not certain if it's proprietary or not. It is a Metrolink owned system, but I guess needless to say, it is the same existing system that is operated with their locomotives and with the Arrow DMUs is integrated in the Zemu. So it's, I guess, there's no difference there.
Thank you, Nick. And is there a plan to expand Zemu past San Bernardino, maybe possibly through Los Angeles or Orange counties?
Yeah, so part of our grant is to demonstrate the viability of, or the feasibility of running the train from San Bernardino all the way to LA Union Station. So we're going to be, when we do test the Zemu in San Bernardino, we will be looking at that performance. Right now, if you have not heard, Caltrans is actually in contract with Stadler for the Zemu vehicles that they will be deploying in other parts of California.
Thank you, Joy. And then a few attendees wanted to clarify what will happen to the DMUs post-conversion. Can the team address that again, please?
Can you repeat that question?
Sure. A few attendees are wondering what will happen to the DMUs post-conversion. Can the team address that again, please?
So there's really no concrete decision yet on what will happen to the DMU when we transition, but we know that those vehicles will either be sold or, it will find a home.
Awesome. And is there a plan to, oh, sorry, I did not mean to.
Oh, no, I was just going to say either that or be deployed somewhere, like I said, in California or other part of the states. So, or United States.
Joy, one thing maybe worth mentioning, it's technically feasible to convert the DMUs to Zemus, but it's more of an economic probably decision at the time.
Good point.
Is that a fair? Yeah.
Very good point.
And then is there only a plan for one Zemu vehicle? And if not, how many train sets do we anticipate having in the future?
I think that's kind of in line with what we just spoke about. So the plan is to have, or the goal is to have a zero-emission multiple unit fleet. So all 4 right now. So we have 3 DMUs currently at the AMF or in service, right? So it would be the 4th vehicle for the Zemu. So we'll have a total of 4, but we at the AMF, we can have up to 6 vehicles. So if we do need to increase service or what have you, we have that capacity.
And then I think just one more clarifying question on that. Long term, will SBCTA eventually buy more Zemus and then retire the DMUs? Is that accurate?
I think that's kind of on the same line, right? So we are going to roll out Zemu. That's the goal. That's the agency's goal. So
awesome. And then would it be possible ever in the future to convert the trains or the AMF facility to electric?
Do you want me to, I'm looking at the question.
Yeah.
Take that one. So the vehicles themselves are already electric vehicles, but they obviously have a battery and a fuel cell system. So clarifying that, I think the question is, if the fuel cell system was proving to be a challenge, would you just sort of operate on battery? And I think what we've seen so far is that the vehicles are performing extremely well. So I don't think that would be something that we would look at. And Joy, if you want to add to that, but they're already electric vehicles, just to clarify.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then, oh, go ahead.
No, I'm good. Thanks.
We did get a question on, can we please clarify the difference between blue and green hydrogen?
I could take that one on too if you want, Joy. Or So in terms of sort of the spectrum of colors of hydrogen, it's a pretty interesting. You can kind of Google it if you need a bit more info, but generally the difference between blue and green hydrogen generally comes from electrolysis using renewable power. So a good example of that would be Sunline Transit. They have an on-site electrolysis facility and using renewable power from the grid. Blue hydrogen is typically formed from steam methane reforming, which uses natural gas, and there's sort of spectrums of that process. If you're using renewable natural gas, then it's considered blue hydrogen. If you're using a non-renewable natural gas, then it's a gray hydrogen. So the focus right now for SBCTA is getting access to a hydrogen supply so that we can get going with this first vehicle operation. So most of the supplies right now are that blue hydrogen source from steam methane reforming, but we are aware of a lot of projects coming online that will be producing electrolytic hydrogen, and that will be where we'll focus in the future when those projects come online.
Awesome. Thank you, Brianne. And then it looks like we just have a couple more questions. Besides Metrolinx Aero, do you think that the North County Transit District's Sprinter has the same Zemu for hybrid rail?
Unfortunately, I cannot speak on behalf of NCTD, but I believe they also have a program that they're looking into. If you can, I mean, I think it's available on the web, but what they're doing. So.
And then I think the last couple of questions can kind of be grouped together. What is the current daily ridership on Aero? And is the conversion to Zemu expected to affect the ridership level in a positive or negative manner? And then also, once the train is in service, should there be any technical difficulties in the beginning, do we have a plan to maintain that service?
Maybe let's break it down, Christina.
Yeah.
At a time.
Sure.
I'm just trying to understand if they're doing the vehicle performance or like level of service. So that's kind of what I'm just reading the question right now.
Yeah, so I think we could start with the daily ridership on Aero, and is Zemu expected to help ridership?
Given that this is a Zemu presentation, I wasn't prepared to answer questions for Aero, but we can definitely get back to, I guess, Mr. Downey on the Aero ridership.
Joy, I mean, I don't know the ridership numbers, but one thing we didn't actually mention that might be worth mentioning is, and having tested the Zemu out in Colorado and riding on it several times now, I mean, it's a nicer ride. Like if you think the fuel cells and the batteries, they're very quiet. The DMUs, while they're quite quiet for a diesel electric train, it's noticeably nicer ride in the Zemu in terms of like noise and exterior noise and even when you're riding on the train. So I mean, will that affect ridership? I can't tell you that, but it is let's say a nicer experience. So hopefully it will.
And actually, I just got to note that our Aero ridership is actually published on our website, so it's available there, and we publish it every quarter.
Awesome. And then one last question to wrap it up. Does SBCTA have a plan to maintain service should there be any technical difficulties with Zemu?
So if this is specific to the train, again, we're going to have 3 DMUs and the Zemu. And the plan is to actually have the Zemu as an alternate vehicle. So if the performance of the Zemu is not quite there, then we have the capacity to maintain train service at all times because of the 3 DMUs we have.
Thank you. And it looks like that was the last of our questions.
Okay, I'm going to advance to the next slide. I was hoping you guys would ask something hard, like where can we get more information on Zemu? I'm just teasing. Those were actually amazing questions, and I know I learned a lot. I continue to learn a lot. This is we're breaking ground on something exciting here in our county, and like I said, for North America. So wonderful questions. That concludes our presentation. Thank you again for joining us all and taking the time to spend your evening with us. We hope you found it as valuable as I did. Our website is here on the slide, gosbcta.com/Zemu. Again, you can email our team at any time with any questions that you may have. If something happens to wake you up in the middle of the night thinking about this project and our next steps, feel free to email us at info@gosbcta.com. You can call us at 877-55-SBCTA or follow Go SBCTA on social media. So thank you again, and have a great night.